So today we are talking about teaser tups and how to get the best out of them. A teaser tup, for those of you who aren't aware of that name, is a vasectomised tup, and we use them generally to tighten a lambing period. So today we'll run through how you get the best out of them. The first thing to think about is, do you need them? A tighter lambing is great if you have the facilities and the manpower to cope with it. Some of our farmers have actually moved away from teasering ewes because it didn't work for them. It was too much of a flat out atmosphere in the lambing shed, and they found it worked better moving away from teaser tups. Most people, I think, have a use for them, but just consider, are they right for you where you are with your staffing and your ewe numbers? It might mean taking an extra person on for a week. It's up to you to decide whether that makes sense for your business. So first things first, we need to select the right tup. Starting with age, generally shearlings are best to be vasectomised, although you can do tups of any age. You can do tup lambs, so that's lambs within their first year, or you can do aged tups. Shearlings tend to be best because they've had a bit of testosterone to develop. Teaser tup candidates should be sexually mature with good libido. They should also just be sound cheek. They should have good feet, good teeth. In some ways, what would otherwise be a good breeding tup, that is just surplus to requirements. Some sort of easily identifiable feature. That's why some people like warbles, because they're black. Otherwise, some sort of either ear notch or red ear tag, something that you can definitely identify them with, because it's amazing how many people forget which are their teasers and which are their breeding tups each year. Moving on to breed, generally long season breeders, that would be things like your Dorsets or your Charolais, are more appropriate than your short season breeders. So that would be your Texels, for example. And then talking about source, ideally they're from home, so they're not bringing in any extra diseases. If you're buying them in, inquire about the disease status of the farm you're buying them from, and also give them the appropriate quarantine treatments. And finally, once you've picked them, you've rung the vet, you've organised the visit to vasectomise them, your vet would generally advise you to starve them for a period beforehand. That makes the anaesthetic safer. Once the procedure's been done, once they've had the snip, I would keep an eye on them for a few days. Keep them either in a dry bedded pen or in a dry paddock. Turn them over a few days afterwards to check the surgical wound is healing nicely, it isn't infected. Again, this is a good opportunity to permanently identify tups that have been teasered, so next year they're not accidentally misidentified as breeding tups. If there are any problems with the wound, of course, ring your vet and they can give you some advice on how to deal with it. Every year we get someone who leaves it quite late, and of course the question is how quickly after vasectomy can you use those tups? The advice, the party line, is 6 to 8 weeks. However, in our practice we have seen them being used much earlier than that, right down to 2 weeks, but again, I would always ask your vet if there's any shadow of a doubt. You can get them semen tested, you can get a semen sample off them using an electroejaculator, and you can see whether there are any viable sperm. But it's really sensible just to get this done in good time, not in the weeks running up to when the stock tups would go out. In terms of longer term aftercare, don't forget your teasers need exactly the same routine treatments as your tups would. That includes parasite treatments like flucicides, vaccinations such as your Clostridial or Pasteurella vaccines, trace element boluses. They need to be in really good shape, because to stimulate this synchronized estrus in the ewes, they've got to be working nearly as hard as the stock tups do. What we tend to find is the teaser's effectiveness tends to decline after 2 or 3 years, so they should probably be retired after that and replaced with a new shearling. Every year there should be a gentle trickle of new teasers in and old teasers out. So you've made your teasers. How do you get the most from them? So ewes ideally should be out of sight and smell of tups, and that includes billy goats as well, for 4 weeks before the introduction of the teasers. In terms of the ratio, it's probably best to use them at the same ratio of your tups, so about 1 to 50, although they can be used 1 to 100. Now, how long should they stay in for? That's a very common question. You start to see a teaser effect after just a couple of days, but often they're left in for 2 weeks, as that's easier to coordinate. But they shouldn't be left in for longer than 2 weeks. And you will then see 2 peaks of estrus, 18 days and 26 days after the introduction of those teasers. And the stock tup should go in straight after the teasers. And remember to take the teasers out at the same time so they're not fighting on with your stock tup. And finally, remember that yes, you synchronize the ewes, that's great. The stock tups are going to have a much bigger job on their hand, and you probably will need more tup power, because all of those ewes are coming into season at the same time. And so there's going to be more of a rush on for the stock tups. You're probably going to need more tup power. 1 tup to 30 ewes is quoted as a benchmark often. And of course, if you're using them in this way, where you need the guarantee that they're going to be firing on all cylinders, a pre-breeding soundness examination is probably sensible. What I'll do is I'll stick a link to a fact sheet containing that information in the description. By all means, go and search it. Otherwise, if you like that, please subscribe, hit like, and leave me a comment. Do you use teaser tups? I'd be really interested to know. And that's it from me today. Over and out.